What is up, guys? It's your boy, finally back from vacation Cactus, and today we are going to be discussing the actually pretty significant changes that Bungie is making to vendors and the reward structures existing within Destiny 2 when the upcoming Lightfall expansion launches. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, the vendor Ada1. Well, currently, she's the salesman for armor mods, but I mean, even right now, she's completely useless, with Bungie actually making every single armor mod in the game accessible for all players leading up to Lightfall. And when Lightfall drops, the build crafting system itself is being overhauled, so she won't need to sell armor mods anymore. She needs a new purpose. Now, she's actually going to sell rare and currently unavailable shaders. 3 different ones rotating each week, so go get your Destiny 2 fashion on. Moving on from there, guys, Zavala is finally, similar to Lord Shaxx and the Drifter and all that stuff, getting the ability to focus engrams. So now you'll actually earn Vanguard engrams and be able to focus them into specific weapons. Now, the weapons, as you can see right here, are kind of everything in the loot pool right now. There's going to be more weapons added in Lightfall, but you can never target focus the brand new weapons of the season. You wait till the next season, and then those get moved into the focusing pool. This is already actually pretty exciting because, I mean, for example, just off the top of my head, the prolonged engagement, right? This is the only right now, 900 RPM stasis SMG in the game. It is arguably the best stasis primary in the entire game for PvE. And so being able to focus that and target farm the god roll is a pretty big deal. But that's actually far from all. The Empty Vessel is still a very good grenade launcher. The Royal Entry is one of the better void rockets in the game. The Fortissimo 11, one of the better slug shotguns in the game. There's a lot of actually really viable and good Vanguard weapons, so expect farming strikes to actually have more of a priority coming with Lightfall, because again, now that you could target farm them, it's going to be so much easier to actually acquire and also easier to justify spending time in strikes when it's not purely reliant on RNG rewards. Now keep in mind, you do have to get these things at least one time before you can focus them. So if you're a relatively new player, you've never actually got a prolonged engagement to drop, maybe a good time to do some strikes before Lightfall drops, get one, get it in your collections, and then allow you to focus them. All right, moving on from there, guys, some huge changes happened to Nightfalls, actually making, I think, Grandmaster Nightfalls now one of the most important activities going forward in the game, just for how good and now how accessible the loot is going to be. So here's what's going on. At Zavala, you can also focus Nightfall weapons. It's gonna cost you a Vanguard engram, 20,000 Glimmer, and 50 Legendary Shards, and here are the available weapons that you can focus. The Militia's Birthright Kinetic Grenade Launcher, Mindbender's Ambition Shotgun, kinda trash. The Wendigo, which has just become available this season, and is actually only available to farm the Adept version of the week before Lightfall launches. The Hung Jury, one of the best scout rifles in the game, the Swarm Machine Gun, and the Buzzard. The last one, the Buzzard, is actually really interesting. This previously was not a Nightfall weapon. This was actually a pinnacle weapon, or I guess whatever Bungie then called it, but the special weapon related to Vanguard. So now we only have one, like, ritual weapon in the game. Right now it's like the Pulse Rifle, and if you level up any of the different main activities, Crucible, Gambit, or Vanguard level 16, you get it. Previously, way back when, years ago, each different one would have a different weapon, and Vanguard's was the Buzzard. So this is now being turned into a Nightfall weapon, this sidearm. So that's pretty interesting. But guys, let's stop here for 2 seconds. Vanguard engrams are gonna need to be used for focusing both those Vanguard weapons, which we know we already talked about how good some of those are, and also Nightfall weapons. And again, with Nightfall weapons, you have some of the best weapons in the entire game, especially for PvE. So Vanguard engrams are going to be at a premium when Lightfall launches. These are being used in double duty to focus some very, very desirable weapons. So like I said earlier, farming strikes is actually going to be pretty legit next season. Or is it? Because I would imagine that farming Nightfalls is also going to give you a bunch of Vanguard rep, let you level up your Vanguard rank, and give you those Vanguard engrams. So it's going to be very interesting to see people figure out, and I'm definitely going to be doing testing myself, what's actually the most efficient thing to farm to level up your Vanguard ranks and get those Vanguard engrams. It could actually turn out that farming strikes awards significantly more rep than farming Nightfalls, and so people would farm strikes to get the engrams to focus Nightfall weapons without actually doing Nightfalls. Kind of interesting. But moving on from there, we also have some specific changes when it comes to Adept Nightfall weapons. So with these, Bungie says when completing Grandmaster Nightfalls, in addition to previously existing rewards, players will also acquire Adept Nightfall ciphers. The number of ciphers that players can earn depends on whether players qualify for platinum, gold, or silver rewards at the end of the Nightfall. And here's how it breaks down. If you get platinum, you get 2 ciphers, gold you get 1, silver you get 0. This is so important. When I originally read this, I thought these were replacing the normal drops, and now you would just get ciphers, and you can use these ciphers to actually focus Adept Nightfall weapons. But thankfully, they're not doing that. If I now beat a Grandmaster Nightfall and I get platinum, just like right now, I'm guaranteed to get whatever Adept Nightfall weapon is dropping that week, as well as probably an Ascendant Shard, or maybe 2, and also probably an exotic armor piece. But now I also get those 2 Adept Nightfall ciphers. But again, what do I do with them? Well, here is the focusing breakdown. So for Nightfall weapons, you see right there, they don't require Nightfall ciphers, but for Adept Nightfall weapons, you need 3 Vanguard engrams to actually make one, and 10 Adept Nightfall ciphers. So that means I need to do a minimum of 5 different Grandmasters and also achieve the platinum rating on all of them, and then I can focus a single Adept Nightfall weapon. Now, that seems like a pretty steep cost, and that's because it is. But remember, this is all icing. These are all additional rewards on top of the already existing cake. So now this is what it's going to let you do. I can go and farm a certain Grandmaster on a certain week to get the weapon I want. But there's a huge existing problem right now, and that is Bungie releases Nightfalls so late in the season that usually there's only one single week where an Adept weapon is dropping. I mentioned earlier in the video, the Wendigo GL3 grenade launcher, the Adept version, is only dropping for 1 week, and it's the week right before Lightfall. So if I want to get a god roll of that thing, I need to farm that specific week. And that means if it's, what's referred to as a crappy or a harder strike, so if it's Glassway for that week, I'm kind of screwed, right? Every single season, there's some Nightfalls like Arms Dealer that are significantly easier than others like Corrupted, Glassway, etc., right? So if a certain weapon falls on a harder strike, and that's the only week you can farm it, then acquiring the god roll for those weapons is significantly harder. Even if you're a really good player, the time it takes you to complete certain strikes is going to be double the time as the easier strikes. So it's just literally doubling the amount of time it takes to get these weapons. But now, with this new system, what I can do is I can just go and farm the absolute crap out of the easiest Nightfall strike of the entire season. So let's say Arms Dealer is the Grandmaster Nightfall for a certain week. I can sit in there and do 50 of them, right? Again, it's very easy. And especially now that Bungie lowered the requirements in terms of power level, so more people than ever can actually participate in Grandmasters this and next season. You're going to have a bunch of people in there farming the crowd of it. Let's say you do 50 runs of Arms Dealer, you've just got 100 Adept Nightfall ciphers. And that means you can actually focus 10 different weapons. So obviously you're going to have a lot of Vanguard engrams as well, but it means that you potentially can just farm the easy Grandmasters and then use focusing to acquire the weapons that drop on those harder weeks, really evening out the playing field and letting people way more often actually get the weapons they want to get. It's gonna let, less skilled players, people who don't have the best builds, the best gear, do those easy Grandmasters and still be able to get those really cracked other Adept Nightfall weapons that are dropping on hard weeks. That is a game changer. We are literally talking about some of the best weapons in the game. Now, with the selection of weapons we have to focus, it's unfortunate to not see things like the Hothead, like literally the best legendary rocket launcher in the entire game, and stuff like that, but we still have some heavy hitters on there, and this list is going to expand every single season. So with all that being said, hopefully you can see why I said at the beginning of the video that starting in Lightfall, Grandmasters are going to become one of the most important activities in the game. They're going to be easier to access than ever before with the lowering of the power level requirements. They're going to drop more loot than ever, simply dropping additional ciphers, and they're going to let you actually get the weapons you want and not be subject to RNG for which week's weapons are dropping because of this new focusing system. So wow, huge changes there. But it actually doesn't stop. There's also going to be legacy gear focusing. So Bungie says Vanguard and Nightfall Focusing isn't the only big update. This system will allow players to obtain many pieces of gear from the last several years of Destiny 2, many of which have not been accessible for quite some time. So the first example is with Crucible armor sets. So here are all the different armor sets that are going to be available, and if you've never acquired a piece before, it is going to cost a lot, like 3 Crucible engrams to turn into, 1 wing contender piece of armor, but if you have acquired them previously, it's a lot cheaper. And again, the main thing is just to unlock the ability to turn these into ornaments and incorporate into fashion, but it's also going to apply to weapons. So all these different Nightfall weapons are available for Legecy Focusing, and they include the Hothead that I talked about earlier, the Uzume RF4, great sniper rifle, Plug 1 is cracked, Horror's Least cracked. Like, these are some very good weapons. However, you can only focus the normal versions, not the Adept versions. But for a lot of players out there, having a God roll normal Hothead is good enough. Like, realistically, how much of a difference does Adept make? It certainly does matter, but it's not going to make a big difference in your DPS or anything. But if you've never acquired them before, they're going to be so expensive. 7 Vanguard engrams is insane. However, you just have to get the one Hothead the one time, and then the cost is going to go down significantly to only 3. And of course, we have Vanguard armor as well available to focus in the Legacy Focusing section, as you can see. For Gambit, we have some stuff here as well. For Iron Banner, a bunch of old Iron Banner weapons are also up for grabs. So if you never got something like the Reese Walker, still one of the better PvP shotguns in the game, you now have a chance to do so. And again, they are extremely expensive the first time and will go down. Even with Trials of Osiris, they're gonna have Legacy Focusing. So stuff like the Shira's Wrath, Reed's Regret, like, these are very, very impactful weapons. Being able to actually acquire that now if you never did before is very important. Moving on from there, they have lowered focusing costs overall, as you can see, with Crucible, Gambit, and Vanguard, and then Trials of Osiris, Iron Banner, and Nightfall getting these changes. But importantly, this is a huge change, guys. Adept weapon focusing for Trials of Osiris and Nightfall weapons have the following costs, as you can see, but here you go right there. 7-win Trials ticket. It doesn't say anything about Flawless. That is a huge change. So you can now get Adept Trials weapons with just 7-win tickets. You don't need to go Flawless anymore. Now, importantly, if you do go Flawless, you're gonna get the Adept weapon out of the chest itself. So in terms of efficiency, if you can go Flawless, way better for actually being able to farm weapons and get what you want. But if you don't go Flawless, you can still turn that ticket into an Adept weapon, right? So, wow, that is a huge change. Now, in one sense, is it ruining the mystique of these adept weapons? Like, if you see them before, you know someone went flawless. I guess so, but if you look at Trials, honestly, that playlist needs help. The player population for Crucible in general, and certainly for Trials, has not been great. This is going to get so many more people to play, right? Like, now you don't have to stress about going flawless. If you lose your 6-win game, no big deal. You just hop in there, you get one more win, and then you can still get out of there with an adept weapon. And again, a massive increase to the player population is what Trials needs most of all. So, really, really big changes there. Fantastic changes there. And guys, the last thing we're going to talk about is some weapons rotating in and out of the loot pool. So, weapons leaving in Season 19, guys. For Trials of Osiris, Forgiveness Sidearm gone, Burden of Guilt Fusion gone, being added, Astro Horizon Shotgun, the Immortal SMG, I think that's actually a new one, Iron Banner, Razor's Edge Sword gone, Frontier's Cry Hand Cannon gone, being added, Yorman's Claw Pulse Rifle, and Bite of the Fox Sniper. Nightfall weapons leaving, Horror's Least gone, DFA gone, being added, the Buzzard Sidearm, which makes sense, that's kind of the newish one that wasn't one before, and the Swarm Machine Gun. So, again, huge changes. I think overall, massively positive changes, gonna let people actually get the loot they want. You're still gonna have to farm for it. Like, a lot of these engram costs requiring multiple engrams. I mean, for the Nightfall weapons, 7 engrams to get a hothead if you've never got one before. Pretty steep, but giving people the option to do that as opposed to nothing at all is definitely a great thing. Guys, that is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.